Don't do distractions. I'm coming back.
Yo, what it do? It's your boy Juice and Lou. We back here with another episode for y'all, man. Free agency is crazy. Honestly, it's crazy. That's the Lakers seem to get everybody. Heat, my Heat, man. Man, we having a good old, great free agency, but we're not here to talk about free agency. There's buzz going around about super teams. The Lakers are forming
Facts.
the Monstars. That's what I'm hearing.
For real.
So we're here to talk about what are super teams, really. And we're gonna look about the team, some controversy. Some people are saying, we're looking at all-time super teams, actually. All-time super teams, and we're going to see which teams are actually super teams and what aren't super teams. So without further ado, Jay Lou, go ahead and take us in.
So we talked about super teams a little bit in the past. For me, I said my definition right now, I gotta say a super team in the NBA is three current Hall of Famers who are still able to put up numbers like good stat numbers, like whatever they had in their Hall of Fame career, and do that at a very efficient high level. Three of those players, and of course, be the clear favorite to win the championship.
Yep.
So, without further ado, let's start off with 1 out of 10 of quote unquote super teams that I have. And we're going to discuss, a little bit if they are or not. Right now, I'll throw it back to the 90s. This is probably as far as I'm going. And I think we all know who we're going to is the 96 Bulls
Okay.
with a starting lineup of Ron Harper, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and Luke Longley. 72 wins on the regular season. Phil Jackson did coach them, one of the greatest coaches of all time. And they had a pretty solid bench as well. Steve Kerr, and a bunch of other role players like, what was his name? Tony Kukoc, yeah. So they got a pretty solid team. What do you think?
That is not a super team.
You don't think so?
Not a super team. Ron Harper was a good defender. Scotty was a great defender. Jordan was a great defender. Dennis Rodman he was a great rebounder, an all-time great rebounder, but he was like a one-time all-star. And he wasn't even an all-star with the Bulls. That wasn't even with the Bulls.
Defensive
So
Player of the Year winner too, but that wasn't with the
DPOY.
Bulls either.
Yeah, that wasn't with the Bulls either. So you can't really say that. Like everybody on that Bulls team was a definition of know your role. Steve Kerr was like a 5 points per game kind of guy. And he was just there to get you a couple threes. Mainly, that was a defensive team, in my opinion. And it worked out. But that's not a super team. That's not a super team. They built that team.
Okay. I agree with you, but I see the reasons because you do have one top 50 player of all time. You have arguably the greatest player of all time on that team. Arguably the greatest coach of all time coaching.
Mm.
And like you said, a top 5 rebounder all time. So, I mean, it's an interesting argument, but to my definition of super teams, it does not make the cut as one.
Mm-hmm.
So 96 Bulls, they were just a really, really good team.
Really good team.
Second team, going to the 2000s now. The 2004 Lakers. starring
Oh,
Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant. I forgot their small forward. I don't think it was Robert Horry anymore. Oh no, I think it was Rick Fox. And power forward Karl Malone and center Shaq. Now this was their last year together. Kobe and Shaq, they made it to the finals and they got swept by the Detroit Pistons. So, what do you think about the 04 Lakers?
that was a super team. Yes, that was a super team. They just didn't get the job done. I feel like Kobe said himself, he said he didn't get the new guys, them, prepared for what they had going on there. So if a little bit of preparation, that definitely they would have won a chip that year. For sure.
Okay.
For sure. But that was a super team. That was definitely a super team. Age, you can't use that. You can't really use that if they were still putting up numbers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Karl Malone, he only played half the season, 42 games. Gary Payton, he played every game. Malone, not all-star numbers. I mean, he put up 13, 9 boards. That's solid numbers, though, out of a Karl Malone who was 40.
They playing
Gary
alongside
Payton,
Shaq and Kobe. You're not going to be putting up that much.
that too. Gary Payton, he put up 15 that year, 5.5 assists, played every game, like I said, at 35 years old. They had Derek Fisher off the bench, but he didn't have the best numbers. And of course, you had Kobe and Shaq. Kobe, leading scorer, had 24 this year. He shot the most shots on the team as well. He started shooting a lot of threes. Well, not a lot, but he shot 3 threes a game, 32%. And you had Shaq, who averaged 21.5 points shot. No, Shaq numbers from the free throw line, 49%. But almost shot 60% from the field with almost 12 boards and 2.5 blocks. So, in my opinion, I can't count this as a super team.
Can't?
Nope. Because I just read you some stats and I already told you my definition. I don't think Gary Payton and Karl Malone, they were at that time, they were previous Hall of Famers. They're kind of like what Carmelo is right now. They still have a little bit of their game left, but they're not what they were, obviously. Kobe, he was clearly entering his prime, and Shaq was clearly almost on his way out of his prime as well. So I got to count that off my list as well. So that's 2 teams not on my super team list.
Okay.
The third team, we're jumping 4 years, and that's the '08 Celtics with Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, newly acquired Kevin Garnett, Kendrick Perkins, Tony Allen.
You said Kendrick Perkins. You said Kendrick Perkins.
Kendrick was a dog, man.
Okay.
He shows up in the playoffs. That's what he said himself on TV.
Gosh.
They had a
Listen,
good
that team was
Ryan
a super team.
Salabrini.
Right, California. That team was a super team, yes. Now, can you say they teamed up to beat LeBron? Sure. But that team was definitely a super team. That was definitely a super team.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on this one. Yeah, Rondo, he's always been a great playoff performer. Even Kendrick Perkins, his playoff numbers did spike up a little bit, especially defensively. Kevin Garnett, he played great defense with Tom Thibodeau as the assistant head coach, and you know how good defensive coach he is. He also had Paul Pierce, one of the best scorers at the time, and then Ray Allen, one of the greatest three-point shooters ever. So that got to be a super team to me. Ray Allen, he was a little bit, and Kevin Garnett, he just got done leading the Timberwolves to playoffs. Didn't really win a lot of things. I mean, they got to the conference final, I think, in 04, but obviously they didn't go past the conference finals ever. So they're falling. The Timberwolves fell off after he left. The Celtics did trade like the whole house for him, though. I think it was like 6, 7 players and like a pick for Kevin Garnett. So, I mean, they got a ring. They got one ring out of it. So I got to say that was a super team, in my opinion. Moving on to the next team, going to the 2010s now. And that's when LeBron James, D Wade, Chris Bosh teamed up. But we're going to skip to 2013, where y'all had Ray Allen join the squad 5 years later with Mario, Shane Battier still, Mike Miller, all the guys, Udonis if you want to add him, Chris Bosh, all of them. What you think about your Heat back then? Super team?
That was a super team, yes. I believe that was a super team. Wade was putting up 20 still. LeBron, obviously. And Chris Bosh was just the icing on the cake. Role players was to feel like they were stepping up every single night. I think that was the year we won 27 straight. 27 straight games. So that team was for sure a super team, and we were looking dominant. We were looking real dominant. So.
Okay. I agree as well. I mean, you said most of it. I mean, I think that's LeBron's best year of all time ever, but that's a whole different debate. And D Wade, he was playing productive, Chris Bosh as well, but I feel like the bench really played this role in this team being a super team, honestly. And Eric Spoelstra also being a great coach he was.
Mm-hmm.
So I got them as a super team. Moving on to the Spurs, though. Their finals matchup the next year, the 2014 Spurs. Tony Parker, Manu, Anui, small forward, and Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan, Thiago Splitter, Boris Diaw, Patty Mills. They had a lot of good players on that team. Would you consider it a super team?
That team was built from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
But with how good they were and how long they were good, I would consider that a super team. I don't really say teams that were built up to be super teams, but that's how good they were and how good their chemistry was. Their chemistry was like that, and they had like 4 All-Stars. 4
The
All-Stars.
Spurs?
Not 4 All-Stars. I said 3 All-Stars.
But why didn't make an All-Star yet?
Well,
He won Finals MVP though.
Finals. He got a Finals MVP, so you can give him that.
We know why he got that.
Yeah. But it's just like it's tough. Like you can go both ways to say they're not a super team and they are a super team. It's just like it's tough. But I could say that actually, yeah, they are a super team. I could say the same for the Heat. That their role players did what they were supposed to do. And Danny Green, he back then he definitely was doing what he was supposed to be doing. I hated Danny Green back then. Boris Diaw, he was doing this thing. Thiago Splitter, you could even say he was doing his thing. But yeah, I can consider them a super team. Yeah.
I also had Marco Bellinelli. I didn't mention as well.
Oh, for sure. I hated him too.
Averaged 12 points for them. Shot the 3-ball really good.
Mm-hmm.
But going by my definition, they're not. Sorry. It's just a really good team, though. They won 62 games. They were the best team record-wise that year. And they just played really good together. I mean, look at the numbers. Tony averaged 17, Tim Duncan 15, Kawhi 13, Marco Bellinelli 12, Manu 12, Patty Mills 10. That's what, 6 players in double figures right there. Then Boris, Danny Green averaged 9. Thiago Splitter averaged 8. That's a good solid 8 players right there. And that's what they rolled.
10 points. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good solid 8 to 9 players. You also had Matt Bonner coming sometimes, play really good. But I can't really say based off the numbers too, they're super. That's all
Okay.
right. Moving on to 2 years later, 2016 Cavs got together. And Kyrie. Their shooting guard was JR, LeBron, Kevin Love, and Tristan Thompson with solid role players. Matthew Dellavedova. He was a great defender for them. I think Richard Jefferson was on the squad, but he was out of his prime. And who's their center? Mozgov, yeah, because he got that massive contract a year later.
Let me
Oh
see.
my gosh, Iman Shumpert.
Oh, goodness.
What do you think about the 2016 Cavs?
It's hard, man. Because Kyrie, he did his thing. All right, now before LeBron, the Cavs suck, but we all know that wherever LeBron goes, role players follow. We know that. So Kyrie, LeBron, Kevin Love, big three. That's definitely a super team. I think that's a super team because Kevin Love was still getting you double doubles, and Kyrie can go off at literally any given moment. He was young, and before he was, a cancer in locker rooms. He wanted to win first, and
Right.
the bench, the role players were solid. The role players were solid. Matthew Dellavedova, he was a menace on defense. Well, a menace. I'll tell you this: he was annoying, and he could shoot. He could shoot. He was annoying. Iman Shumpert, he hit a couple shots. J.R. Smith, he came up big in moments. He had some moments where he shined, but just that team as a whole, that team as a whole was a super team. Now, well, I forgot the year. Was it 18 where he added Wade and Isaiah Thomas and Derrick Rose? That was 18. Now, that that wasn't a super team just because the Isaiah Thomas, D Wade, and all them, they didn't do
I
what they
mean,
were
they all
supposed to
got
do.
traded anyways at the trade deadline.
Yeah, because they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. That's why. If they were, that's a championship. But we're talking about 2016. 2016 was a super team. Yes.
For me, at that time, I mean, you had Thunder, Westbrook, KD. Not really. That was about it. You had the Warriors. Once we're gonna talk about them as well. You had Bron's team. Going all back to the definition, I can't say it was. Even though Kevin Love was fresh out of Minnesota, he didn't perform like the Minnesota him, obviously. Their bench was all right. They do have a top three player, in my opinion, all time, LeBron. And Kyrie at that time, he was probably considered top three, top five point guard, whatever you want to put him. And probably still today. But I can't say they were a bona fide super team. So I got them off my list as well. Okay. Now, obviously, we have the 7-3-9 Warriors. Now, do you think that's a super team?
Not a super team.
No.
That was not a super team. They built that from the ground. Steph, Clay, Dre, Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut, that's not a super team. That's not a super team. They just had really good chemistry. That's not a super team.
I agree. So last two teams, we're gonna talk about modern Lakers and the modern day Nets. What do you think?
Well, the Nets is clear as day is a super team. I don't know if you've been under a rock or if any of y'all watching has been under a rock, but the Lakers, not the Nets are 1000% a super team. Now, if they can get some consistent role players, Joe Harris, then they could do something. Now, the Lakers, on the other hand, 100% that's a super team. I wasn't one of those guys who was calling Russ and Melo washed. I wasn't one of those guys. Melo, he's not that consistent, but he's still got some left in the tank. He can go out and get you 15. Melo can go out and get you 15. And then Russ, we know what Russ can do. We know what he can do. Now, Dwight, they brought him back. He did great for them during that 2020 finals run. He did great for them. And then you add in Malik Monk, uh, Kendrick Nunn, who else? I don't know. They added enough great players. And it looks like they're still not done because they're trying to go for Buddy Hield. So this is just as much as a super team. This is a super team. That's a super team. That's two supers. And if they get Buddy Hield, this is not even going to be fun anymore. This is not even going to be fun anymore.
I agree with the Lakers, but not the Nets. KD superstar, Harden superstar. I think Kyrie's an all-star right now.
Kyrie's an all-star.
But I say this, he's a superstar. He's a superstar in the third option position. They don't have the elite coach like most super teams. They don't have the bench depth right now. I mean, they got Patty Mills, great signing, and James Johnson as of right now. But right now, though, I can't really say after their playoff run how the role players played. I mean, they got Blake Griffin back. He played good, but Joe Harris, like you said, did not play good. So they need a little bit more consistent role players for them to be a super team. And then the Lakers, you bought it all up. I mean, they got everybody this offseason. Malik Monk. They still have Schroeder, but he wants more money. So he may get signed in trade. So they got Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Melo, Westbrook. I mean, how much help does Bron need? I know you're 37 almost, but dang, man.
It's honestly sad. It's honestly sad that you need Anthony Davis an all-star, Russell Westbrook an all-star, Melo an all-star. And I'm talking about careers. Melo an all-star, LeBron an all-star. Who else was there? Dwight Howard an all-star. It's just that's an all-star starting lineup. That's an all-star starting five.
Yeah, in their prime for sure. That would have been a super team.
That would
Super duper duper.
Russ at the one. You could slide. Listen, LeBron could play any position. That don't matter. You could put Braun at the one, Russ at the two, Melo at the three, AD back at the four, because AD don't want to play the five. AD wants to play the four. And then Dwight at the five. Yo, like, man, listen. Hey, that's gonna wrap up this
That's
episode, you
it.
guys, man. That's crazy, ain't it? But let us know down in the comments what you guys think down below, man. Who's your super teams? Were our super teams yes and no's? Were they valid? Let us know. But hey, until next time, it's your boys Juice and Lou, and we out of here.
Yeah.
Peace.